Hello, everyone. These are the same slides as the first set is what I presented yesterday. So apologies if you already saw it, but we just want to make sure we're getting out to everyone possible. So we're going to be giving an update on the Streamlined Clinical Trials Committee, just kind of where we're taking our data collection under those new guidances. So really, this all kind of started in 2020 in November. The goal was to reduce the site burden on data collection, especially for late phase trials that are IND exempt. And so we're going to be looking into ways that we can try and effectively do that. So the three main goals that we have here are to reduce the amount of data that's being collected. We're going to really focus on data that's being collected just for the endpoint and any confirmation of eligibility or stratification or anything like that. Outside of that, there's also some initiatives to focus on removing the logistical challenges of extracting the data from the electronic health record system. And then we're also going to be working with partners who work in the EHR and also the other systems to try and make sure that they can interact in a more streamlined way. So we've really been focusing on this first initiative, just trying to figure out what data absolutely needs to be collected in these trials and trying to make sure that we're going to be implementing that moving forward. So I'm going to talk about that. On the slide, we have the co-chairs of the working group and then also the ECOG-ACRIN members who are helping out. So this all kind of the big change was approved in March of this year. So we have new guidance for the reduced data collection that we'll be going over. We're going to be implementing this on all trials that are activating on January 1st, 2025. So we've already started to implement in our study build and our study setup processes, and we've gotten some initial feedback, which has been really helpful. And yes, we'll be making sure the process is implemented across the NCTN group and the CTIP process for these activation of trials. So what trials will be impacted by this? We'll have ones that are managed by CTIP. These ones will be either phase 3 or phase 2-3 trials. There will be an intervention where treatment is the primary thing that we're looking at. It'll be adult participants and it'll be IND exempt trials. So on these trials, we'll be only collecting data that's required for the endpoints and in the process reduce the burden on sites for data collection and entry. So as we're looking into it, we broke the data that we're collecting down into multiple different categories. And in this presentation, I'm going to be going through those categories and kind of showing what we currently collect and maybe where you may see changes in those. So the first category we're going to be looking at is adverse events. So for adverse events, we will be focusing, we'll be only collecting grade 3 and higher adverse events on these trials, and we'll only be collecting the AE term and grade. We may need to collect a verbatim term for CDIS compliance, but that's an optional thing, but you may see that on some of yours. So that means we won't be collecting attribution on these trials. We won't be collecting all the SAE fields that we currently have. Start and stop dates will not be collected. Again, this is only if there are going to be potential exceptions if there's necessities for study endpoint analyses. So here I included a table that kind of just shows what we're currently doing. We're currently looking to see if it is CTIP held IND, if it's a registration trial, and if it's the phase of the trial, and determining if we're going to have CTIP AIRS rave integration used, if we're going to be collecting start and stop dates, and what grades we're going to be collecting. So for the most part, we've already been kind of looking at these trials a little bit differently, trying to reduce the data burden, but we will see only those higher grades collected, and also the just grade and term. And this again will just be for our therapeutic trials. So for medical history, this is just what data we collect about the patient status as they're being enrolled for the study, as they're being screened for the study. And we'll have kind of background data on their disease and any other characteristics of their health profile. So again, for all of these, we're going to be focusing on really trying to figure out what we need to collect for the predefined analyses and any endpoints, and then also eligibility and stratification verification. So right now we do create custom forms for medical history or disease description. And so the forms you'll probably be familiar with, oftentimes they look like this. And these fields are usually pulled straight from the protocol. For the most part, we're just collecting essential disease status and then also eligibility confirmation fields. So we've kind of been in line with this already, so I'm not sure exactly how much these forms will change moving forward. But again, we'll be focusing on reducing it as much as possible. For concomitant medications, we currently collect it on some of our trials, not all of our trials. We have the option to collect it just at baseline to see what patients are taking, or in treatment and follow-up as well. So we're really going to be limiting the data collection for concomitant medications moving forward on these trials, really focusing on only if it's needed for the analysis or just to confirm eligibility or stratification and the baseline time point. So right now we have concomitant medication forms. I have kind of a number of different versions. We're able to set up like predefined dictionaries for certain agents we're looking for, or just collect them all. And we typically collect route, dose, and frequency, and all that information. So just here is a picture of our current concomitant medication form. Next, we have the physical exam. It was the next category. So for this, we're really only collecting height, weight, and BSA on most of our trials. So I'm not sure exactly how much that will change, but we'll be taking that into consideration. The next category was lab tests. So this is probably one that will change a lot, kind of depending on some of our trials. We have collected a lot of labs at baseline and at treatment time points. And so really, again, we'll be focusing on just identifying if there are specific lab values that we need for an analysis. We'll be identifying what the planned analyses are for those and making sure they are absolutely necessary if we're going to be collecting them at baseline and at follow-up time points. The next one is imaging and any other disease assessments. For these ones, we feel like we've already been pretty in line with this. So you probably won't see many changes. We really try and figure out what assessments are going to be required in order to determine the PFS or recurrence-free survival endpoints, and really just focus on those assessments. And the last one is the patient-reported data. This one, again, will be pretty similar. We really just focus on what is being required in the protocol and collecting the information there. All right, so moving forward, the NCTN groups will be holding informational sessions just so that everyone is aware, and we'll be communicating the new guidelines out to the study teams. CTEP will comment on the concepts and protocols as they go through, and will identify if they'll be in this IND exempt status and eligible for the Streamlined clinical data practice. So when we're in the development process, if an investigator identifies something of interest that is outside the scope of the Streamlined clinical data, they'll need to submit a request for that data collection to the group leadership, and we'll review it and approve it if we feel it's acceptable. And then if it does get approved, that request will also need to be submitted to CTEP for approval. So we are trying to implement these processes to make sure that we are actually going to be in accordance with the guidelines and not over collecting data just in case the study team may want it later on. So here are a few trials that we're currently developing that will be the first trials that have it. So as these trials come out, if you're working on them, you may notice some differences. Hopefully they're good differences. But we are working on setting up the new guidelines on these trials. So we've been communicating with the study chairs of these trials via email, notifying them that they are that their trial has been identified as a streamlined data collection trial. We are also reviewing the protocols to make sure that what's in the protocol is harmonized with the data collection requirements as well. These trials will have the new commercial AE template reporting. So there'll be the 24-hour reporting requirement for SAEs. On the cover page, it will be identified as a streamlined clinical data trial. So that information will be easily accessible to you just by looking at the study document cover page. And then, as I mentioned, our study build team will really be focusing on making sure that we are sticking to this process. Anything that's being requested outside of it will need to have that approval process. So that's all I have. I can take any questions that people may have.